Yeah, baby!
Kevin's here.
Steve is just having way too much fun.
If I could, I need another mouse because I can push more buttons that way. Welcome to GrokTALK.
Just have to move that mouse faster.
Live in Concord. Main Street is clear this week. Parking still stinks.
Absolutely.
Because, people come to Concord and they shop and they park on the main street. I mean, the minute we pull out of here, when we leave, people are like lining up to take our spaces because they're good spaces. Because we get here early.
Yeah, between 8 and 8:15.
Yep.
Mr. Kervick just found out what we went through over the last couple of weeks with the door. Yeah. I just happened to get to the top of the stairs because we're going, where's Kevin? And I get to the top of the stairs, and there's this guy trying to open the door,
I thought for sure you moved.
Somebody came along and locked the door.
It's probably the tattoo guys.
Probably. They heard I was coming. Locked me out.
Last week we were here and we were waiting for the guy from Hairbiz to let us in because he was getting the keys, the new keys, because the old keys didn't work. Those of you who've been listening to the show know the story. And just as he's coming with the keys, one of the tattoo guys comes downstairs, unlocks the door, walks right out, doesn't say anything, just walks right out into the street market that was going on Main Street. And the Hairbiz guy's like, where'd he come from? I'm like, I don't know, maybe he slept there. He's like, you better not be sleeping here. I'm like, that's your problem, not my problem. I need to go upstairs and start a show. I have like 17 minutes to get going. And that was last week. This week we got in, we had plenty of time. But you got locked out. So, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Nice to have you back.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, wait, we got Mike hanging on the line. Mike, you there?
I'm still here.
Okay, Mike's still here.
All the way from California.
All right, we're going to talk about beer, Mike.
Oh, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, because Kevin's got a microbrewery thing. Tell us about it.
Yeah, okay. So I want to talk about beer because...
So don't I. Or at least a sleeping sharing one.
Because beer is a liberty issue, so people don't really realize that. But I started a business about 2 months ago called Craft Beer Cellar in Nashua, and we very much have kind of a populist mission. So we're about small, independent, local breweries. But New Hampshire's done some great stuff. About 3 or 4 years ago, the libertarians in the House, the Bill O'Brien people, the awful Bill O'Brien people that people like to complain about all the time, really opened up the market for small independent craft brewers. So there's something called the Nano Brewers Law that passed that allowed all these small businesses to get into the market. So now our New Hampshire craft beer system is thriving. In fact, I'm heading to the New Hampshire Craft Brewers Association festival today in Manchester at noon. There's 28 thriving, growing, small New Hampshire craft brewers, many of which are new, that came into existence because the laws changed and allowed the small businesses to get into the market. There's about 5 more that are in operation that aren't part of the New Hampshire Brewers Guild. So there's about 32 to 35 brewers and 13 more new small ones on the way. So it's an exploding market around the country, but particularly in New Hampshire. And it really is because they had the foresight to open up the market several years ago. So it's an exciting time for brewers, and a lot of people don't realize. I'll just finish this point, Skip. That the liquor system nationwide is that one of the most statist systems there is. It's a state-controlled system. It isn't free enterprise. And New Hampshire, the live free or die state, is one of the worst offenders of the sort of state-controlled sort of liquor system. So I'm in this business not only because I love craft beer, want to sell beer, want to start a business, and want to do something with my family. It fits for me in terms of my mission to really open up markets, to create free enterprise, and to really get the state out of this whole sort of crony capitalist, economy that we have. So I'm excited. I'm going to this festival at 12 today, and it kind of fits right in with what hopefully we'll talk about a little bit more this morning.
Well, I do have a question, and I'm a teetotaler. My dad was.
Me too. I don't drink at all.
My dad was an Irish drunk, so I don't drink at all. Mm-hmm. And I warned my kids, you probably don't want to do this. They learn the hard way why. But I look at this, and I'm hearing all the numbers of breweries that are starting up, and I think that's a great thing. Anytime anybody starts a business, that's a grand thing. Yeah. But I'm looking here in the state of New Hampshire, and I'm hearing all these numbers, and I'm thinking there's 1.3 million of us. Only half are probably of the age that can drink. And I'm thinking 35 plus the regular. without getting into the head that's poured into the glass, are we seeing a beer bubble here?
Yeah, potentially. That's the worry. But I think what's really happening is market share is shifting from InBev, Miller Coors, which are both huge now multinational corporations, right? So 80% of all the beer sold in the United States is macro beer owned by foreign companies, right? So people don't understand. Budweiser is now owned by a foreign company. Miller Coors owns everything else. So what's really happening is there's a shift away from those massive corporations, which are crony capitalist, institutions. I mean, they're in bed with government at every single level, particularly in New Hampshire. So there's a shift away to the small brewers. And with that comes a mentality that says, drink better beer, drink less beer, drink beer more like wine to savor it, enjoy it, get away from this sort of macro Coors Light jock mentality, guzzling down 14 beers at a fraternity party mentality towards a different way of thinking. So I feel really good about encouraging people to get into the sort of craft beer movement because it's a different philosophy. The worst thing, alcoholism rates soar when people think they can go out and grab 15, Coors Lights and guzzle them down faster than their friends. So we're actually shifting. We're moving away from that mentality. And I tell my kids, if you're going to drink, have one beer, make it a good one, enjoy it, savor it, have it with your meal or after your meal. Get away from this sort of crazy mentality, this binge mentality that we've had. So it actually feels good to me that we're actually moving people in this direction, for the sort of for the free enterprise aspect of it. But also I think it's healthier for people to think in terms of, drinking local, drinking quality rather than drinking quantity.
Mike?
Got it?
Point of order from the crazy Brit here. So a couple of things, and you might want to think about this as a marketing ploy. About 30-odd years ago in the UK, there was a thing called the Campaign for Real Ale, CAMRA.
I'm familiar with it, Mike. Yeah, absolutely.
And they held festivals and stuff, of which one of the biggest was at Crystal Palace, one of the exhibition halls in London. And all the small breweries would come and exhibit their wares. And you're absolutely right about flavor versus quantity, and I hate to say it, but the traditional mainline American beers are, especially when served cold, relatively flavorless,
right.
Which means that people do tend to drink them like lemonade and get drunk out of their skulls because they're not actually that much lower in alcohol than darker beers. You just don't notice it. And, whilst microbrewed beers can range from 4% up to probably 8%, they're rather stronger at the top end. Mm-hmm. It's more the point that you're savoring the flavor, and that's terrific. And I'm going to put in a quick plug, too. I have a small share in one of those NATO breweries that started up in Portsmouth called Earth Eagle Brewing.
Absolutely. I know them well.
Yeah, Alex
and Butch.
And Butch.
I'll see them today at the festival, Mike.
Oh, excellent. So Alex and his wife Gretchen started a little brew supply shop, and out of that grew some brewing in a kettle in the back room, and before they know it, they had demand, and then they had to get all the licensing and stuff. And that's where I came in. All the real investment and sweat equity is theirs. I put up some money, help them get through the fees and things. I didn't know that.
Cool. That's exciting. I actually had the first beer there, Mike, on their first... when they opened their tasting room, I snuck in and got the first one, kind of snuck in front of wine. So I know Alex and Butch really well. They're great guys. Butch is actually getting out of teaching, and he's going to be doing this full time, and he's kind of excited about that too. So
I'm just delighted. I don't know whether this will pay for my retirement because I'm like a 3 to 5%.
I think so. I think so. They're pouring a New England Gangsta today, by the way, at the festival, which is a great, great beer.
I was going to Skip's point about saturation. This is a tourist state, really. I mean, why couldn't we just be beer mecca? Yeah. I mean, why not just, have all these microbreweries?
Pass the prayer mat, or is that a beer mat?
It's a coaster, Mike, beer coaster. So anyway, I mean, we get people to come here because there's a tax advantage, no sales tax. We get, maybe not, I don't know about beer, but the tourism issue, I mean, I drive up here every Saturday, and there are tons of cars coming up here when I'm coming up in the morning, and there's tons of cars coming up here when I'm going home. I mean, and they're not from New Hampshire. These are from people from all over New England driving up into the heartland of New Hampshire, and if they're going to come stay a couple days, they should have a beer. That's what I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And right now we're not competing as well with Vermont and Maine and Massachusetts as we could be. Massachusetts was voted the third best state in the country to get great beer, which is ridiculous that Massachusetts is beating New Hampshire in terms of getting great beer. And in part it's because we're just opening up our nano market, but our laws to allow out-of-state brewers to register in the state are draconian. They're Prohibition-era laws that haven't changed forever. It's very expensive. The brewers describe it as extortion. So the New Hampshire, Commission is extorting brewers to pay a ton of money to get into the state. So we're fighting on both fronts. We're fighting to make the nano brewers more viable and to grow and to be better, and also to open up the laws so that more quality out-of-state brewers can come in. And the goal, as Mike said, is to get better flavor, high-quality beers. And the market share is going away from InBev and Miller Coors, towards these smaller guys, small business people rather than corporations.
So Kevin, is Budweiser one of those reverse mergers too?
What's her?
Because Budweiser is a big American corporation, and there was a much smaller but better quality brewery in, was it Czechoslovakia?
Yes.
With the name,
yes.
Basically Budweiser spelled a little differently.
Czechvar, yes.
And now it's called a foreign corporation. So did they reverse merge there?
At some point recently, InBev, which is a Belgian company, bought out Anheuser-Busch. So,
oh wow!
Budweiser is owned by InBev, IMBEV, which is it was a company from Belgium. So, and Miller Coors and Molson kind of merged. So, yeah. So there's really, people drink Budweiser and Miller because they think it's the American beer. I mean, a lot of people, friends of mine, that say this is a patriotic thing to drink these great, and they're just not anymore.
Sam Adams. Patriotic.
Yeah, go with Sam Adams if you have a choice, right? Go with Sam Adams, right?
I do, and the beauty.
Or at the low end of Old Milwaukee.
Well, people don't understand that. People are like, how can you drink those darker beers? I said, because they drink them longer. Mm-hmm. You can't just chug them. I mean, you could, but why? Because then you've completely wasted the whole point of paying for that beer, because it really does taste good. Right. And the heavier beers, you drink them slower. I'll give you a counter example. Sometimes we get Coronas. My wife likes them. Stick a lime in them. Mm-hmm. I could drink a 12-pack of Coronas in about 7 minutes. Mm-hmm. They are so light, and they're delicious. Don't get me wrong, but boom, boom, boom. I mean, there's nothing there. It's like I might as well be drinking alcoholic water, really, when you get to the bottom of it with a little lime in there. Exactly. And so, if I drink Sam Adams, it lasts longer. Yeah. And you really, and he drinks Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew's good as well. Yeah.
which has got more sugar in it than my coffee.
And something
Thank you very
green
much.
in there. I'm not exactly sure. But
radiator fluid. Hey, listen, we're going to take 60 seconds.
It only looks like ethylene glycol.
That's right. We're going to take 60 seconds because that's kind of what we do around here. It might be 90 seconds. We'll find out. We'll be right back.
He tried to make us believe he was a fiscal conservative, but State Senator Jeb Bradley has been deceiving New Hampshire taxpayers. Like a wolf in sheep's clothing, he claimed to be one of us, pretending to blend in, but all along voting like a liberal Democrat. And oh, how he drooled at the opportunity to vote to expand Obamacare, which will result in higher taxes and longer wait times in the emergency room. And now, Senator Bradley is leading the charge to try and pass a Senate bill to prevent us from criticizing his vote. Call Senator Bradley at 603-569-4208 and tell him that we're on to his wolf in sheep's clothing routine. Tell him to stop pretending to be a fiscal conservative and start voting like one. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
We are struggling. Rising healthcare costs are part of the problem. Senator Jeanne Shaheen helped create this mess we're in. As a state senator, her bill chased 21 insurers out of our state. It reduced our choices, raised prices for New Hampshire families, and when Jeanne Shaheen supported Obamacare, it limited access to 10 of our 26 hospitals, reducing our choices again. Tell Jeanne Shaheen she's made healthcare worse.
We were just talking about how Obama is America's kryptonite. We are no longer a superpower. Oh, hey, I pushed the wrong button. There we go.
Yes.
Sorry. I have you on 4 and nobody on 3. And I keep turning on 3. And I turned on 4 and I didn't turn on 2. Hey, welcome to GrokTALK.
Yeah, but Mike's not on either.
Mike's not on. Well, if I turn that on, he's going to start talking. There we go.
Well, I'll lead off with what I said during the break. Top House Democrat. This is over at the corner. Obama's immigration orders are more important than vulnerable Dems. And the latest one is that instead of at least make these quote-unquote refugees, these illegal alien immigrants, whether they're adults or kids, have to trek all the way up to America, Obama has the bright idea of just saying, oh, we'll have our embassy staff pre-process you in the country of your choice, and then you can just take the plane in and you're automatically a refugee. I'm sorry, what other country does this to its citizens? And that's really the point. Mm-hmm. Why are we allowing our country to devalue the value of American citizenship?
Absolutely, yeah.
There we go.
Absolutely, and I'm angry. I did my State of the Union 2014 on my little local show last week, and every indicator has gotten worse in the 20 shows. In the past year I've done the show, I think everything has gone backwards. I think Obama and his cronies are committing treason. I don't know why we're sort of mushying up the language. I mean, allowing people to come in, not protecting the country, letting people come across the border, shipping them to other parts of the country against the will of the American people, devaluing citizenship. I think that's treason. I don't know what else you can call it.
Orwell said that one of the ways to defeat a nation is to change the language out from underneath it, and certainly the progressives are doing that. All you have to do is look at this current war on women, where the word access doesn't mean the same thing to me as it does to the progressives. No. To me, it says, you can't even buy this if you want it. That it is illegal. Where the progressives say, if I'm not buying it for some unknown woman, that's denying her access. But the person I feel the worst about in this conversation right now is the guy who's joined us virtually, who has done everything the legal way, spent the time, spent the money, trying to become a naturalized citizen. Right. And here's Obama just saying, make it across the Rio Grande or get on this new plane from Central America, and you too will be put on the path to citizenship. Mike, what do you got to say about this?
Well, so I actually haven't taken the final citizenship exam because you know what? I'm looking at the Iron Curtain gradually crystallizing and thinking I might want to leave one day. But for the moment, I'm going to stand and fight until it becomes impossible. But I have been here nearly 30 years. I've been well paid, and I paid a lot of taxes. I don't vote, but I am legally allowed to agitate and influence, and that's what I do. And I try and make it count for more than one vote. But as for these folks just coming in illegally, it's an outrage. And it's not just an outrage to old white guys like me. It's an outrage to the young brown folks that they're displacing. You ask the hard-working Hispanics that have actually got jobs the right way, and they are as mad as hell about this stuff.
Is it a case, do you think, Mike, that after Obama, we are going to be able to right this ship, that there'll be enough angst and anger among most people to say, look, the polls have all been saying America's been on the wrong track for a long time. Are they willing to really go after and vote for people who say, we are going to make government smaller, we are going to promote traditional values, we are going to put the country back on the right track? Do you think that's going to happen, or have we reached that tipping point where, like MIT's Jonathan Gruber said, part of the Obamacare IRS thing was to make people mad, to force their states into saying, you need to no longer deny us those hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars of health care, and never saying we're going to get it from somebody else.
They absolutely are trying to effectively pass the Second Bill of Rights and have people demand their rights, and that's hugely offensive.
I wanted to. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish, Mike.
No, it's okay. Go.
I just wanted to say that Kevin's show is Discovering Possibilities. Okay, you can just Google Kevin Kervick, and you will get a YouTube link, and all the episodes are there.
Thanks.
Episode 19 is his State of the Union. If you scroll back to episode 12, it's me. So,
which was a great show.
Plug
by the way.
for Granite Rock, and of
they,
course, Discovering Possibilities.
And you did
Nashville Cable Access.
Say some nice words about me, and I have to say thank you.
Oh,
I did
absolutely.
listen to the show.
Oh, good. Absolutely, yeah. Well, Skip, you write about the American identity, about traditional values about who we are as a people. And, Pat Buchanan writes similarly. And I think that there are very few people writing about that. I don't see how a system, a living system, an organism, a state, a group of people, the United States, can survive if with these assaults to our identity, just the sheer numbers of people coming into the system. Rush Limbaugh was talking about how we curtailed immigration for several decades or a period of time to assimilate people that had come in mass. I feel like we're at a place now where we're just becoming this kind of glob of diversity, and we're losing the American identity. We're losing our identity as who we are as a country, and our American system is being assaulted almost beyond repair. Some days, in answer to your question to Mike, I wonder if we can put it back together some days. And
I do too, but I'm willing to fight for it.
Me too.
As long as we possibly can. The real problem, folks, is not the Democrats. They are what they are. They are rabid. We know what they're trying to do, and they don't hide it. The problem is the Republican Party. We have to take it over. And I strongly commend to you Richard Vigory's book, Take Over, which describes the perfidy of Republicans going back a long way, establishment Republicans, that is, and gives remedies for it. And his saying, borrowed from James Carville, is, it's the primary, stupid. In other words, if we don't shut out the establishment candidate in the primary, we can't expect to right the ship. And it becomes more urgent with each election season.
Yeah, so we have the National Chamber of Commerce in bed with the Obama forces, right, trying to increase immigration, ignore the laws, and they're so-called Republicans, right, the National Chamber of Commerce. So they're, as far as I'm concerned, they're part of the elite sort of oligarchy that's running this country now.
Back in 2010, they were bad. Now they're good.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they switched sides, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the conservative populists, as I like to call them, the Liberty Republicans, however we want to characterize them, against these two groups of people that call themselves, I don't know, various things. Sometimes Republicans, as Mike says, but they're really no different than the Democrats, in terms of their same status goals, particularly around immigration, and that's where you see the schism,
Well, we saw that in this state, and it's the example that we use over and over again here. Well, two great examples of rogue Republicans, as I call them, Medicaid expansion and the gas tax, totally against the platform. And as I wrote about, as Susan Olson wrote about Dave Booten this morning, I wrote about Jeb Bradley a day or so ago.
Yeah, I saw that.
They're proclaiming that we've done this in a way that sounds Republican, but all they've done is advance Democrat agendas. And they hate it when you put it that way because they understand that we're upset. They also understand that we're not going to let them go with it. And I've had screaming matches with these people, literally, in their face. And I just don't understand. I don't care if you're for this, but if you're for this kind of stuff, go move to the Democrat Party. Like Jake Wagner, the former chair of the College Republicans, is now putting out some tweets or some texts that are basically saying, yeah, maybe I should join with the New Hampshire Dems. Well, we kind of know that he's, to your other point, we're no longer the melting point. We're tossed salad where the Democrat identity group politics, the propaganda of victimhood, has separated us into all kinds of different little groups. And just like the community organizers, they have set each one of these groups against each other. They've separated us.
That's their goal.
And that's where the tipping point comes, because you get it not only on ethnicity. You've got La Raza, which means the race, and you've got a congressman who's saying, well, we need to do everything for our people, and we're going to punish those other people that prevent us from bringing more of our people into the country, Gutierrez. You've got the 99% versus the 1%. You've got this geographical location against this location. You've got the atheists and the agnostics against the Christians and the Muslims. I mean, every single way you can look, it's a multi-dimensional carve-up of America. And yes, it used to be like that in times past, but I don't think in as desperate a state with the pushing that they're trying to do, that's going to break everything apart.
Sure. If you carve it up enough, then you need the strong arm of the authoritarian government to hold it together. And that's really what they want. Carve it all up, and then they'll come in with force to kind of hold it together, because that's the only alternative. And so I think it's a deliberate attempt, by the progressives, by the Democrats, and by the statist Republicans to kind of carve it up to take power.
Yeah.
People can't, a family couldn't withstand this sort of division. Multiculturalism is it's a make-believe philosophy. It doesn't work. It's never worked. It never will work. There's no way you can have a multiculturalism hold a system together. The system has to share values and share a sense of identity for it to sustain itself.
Well, we see what's happened with political correctness, because the real true name of political correctness is Marxist culturalism.
That's all it is.
Which is the idea of bringing down, as we started off this morning, bringing down Cloward Piven, the entire system, every single way. And part of it is to demoralize us, because a lot of us are asking, are we at that tipping point?
Yeah.
The fact that we have to ask that question means, to some degree, we are demoralized.
Well, we did talk about it. We talked about how the left is about action, and the act of destroying institutions is an action, but in and of itself, not specifically. It also creates circumstances that demand more action, because as you destabilize everything, you get these cracks, and people want to fill the cracks in with things, and people want to make the cracks bigger. There's always action. So as you ruin the institution, other things have to come along to fill it up. Government, action, and it feeds itself.
Eventually you're driving bear-cat-sized wedges into the social fabric.
There you go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, there's a great example that we just saw with the Vietnam vet who had lost his legs, and he was in his wheelchair trying to get some parts for something, and his wheelchair fell apart. And there, right on the spot, right at the end of the day, these 3 Lowe's employees basically rebuilt his wheelchair right in front of him. Wow. Now, this is the same wheelchair that for 2 years he'd been asking the VA to give him a replacement. That's government versus civil society. De Tocqueville, back in the 1830s and 40s, said the strength of America was not in its government, but its civil society. And government progressives have driven government so far to eliminate civil society, basically.
It's true. That's true. You can hang out if you want. We don't think our next guest is going to show up, because we said some naughty things about him in the past. So
that's terrible.
If you want to stick around as long as you can, please
do.
Yeah. We have another guest at 10:30, but we probably have a big space. Anyway, my name's Steve McDonald. I'm here with Kevin Kervick and Skip Murphy, and Mike Rogers is in California on the phone, and we are GrokTALK, and we will be back in about 3 minutes.
Senator Jeanne Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by SaberPac.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
He tried to make us believe he was a fiscal conservative, but State Senator Dave Booten has been deceiving New Hampshire taxpayers. Like a wolf in sheep's clothing, he claimed to be one of us, pretending to blend in, but all along voting like a liberal Democrat. He voted to raise your gas tax by another 23%, taking a bigger bite out of our wallets every time we're at the pump. And oh, how he drooled at the opportunity to vote to expand Obamacare, which will result in higher taxes and longer wait times in the emergency room. And now the Senate wants to pass a bill to prevent us from criticizing Senator Booten's vote? Call Senator Booten at 603-203-5391 and tell him that we're on to his wolf in sheep's clothing routine. Tell him to stop pretending to be a fiscal conservative and start voting like one. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Few things are as important as finding the right doctor. And under Obamacare, that's harder than ever. Over a third of our hospitals no longer available. Our doctors no longer covered. Fewer choices, longer drives. No state has been harder hit than us. And even after watching it impact New Hampshire, Congresswoman Ann Custer still supports it. Call Ann Custer. Tell her Obamacare isn't working for New Hampshire.
Grok TV.